So the very first film of the Arthaus Project, Symbiopsychotaxiplasm. Um, Jeffrey, you just saw the film 10 minutes ago, no? So maybe we can start with you.
Yeah, I honestly didn't like. I think Vivek announced it like a week back or something. I had the copy downloaded, but I hadn't gotten time to watch it. Like I kept something kept coming up each day, and I made a conscious choice not to Google anything about the film because the title itself had me hooked, and I didn't want to know anything more. I didn't know what the title meant, so I wanted to keep it that way. So
I
it
don't think
was.
Googling would have helped, right?
I don't think so.
Yeah, it's on its own turf altogether.
Yeah, yeah. So it was a wild ride. I was surprised for a film from what, the 60s. Uh, I mean, I was surprised by the meta-ness going on here, and surprisingly how true it is to the process of actually making a film. Like, uh, I mean, it reminded me of the times I've tried to do something, do something like this myself. Not like do a meta narrative, but just the process of making a short film, right, or something like that. And the chaos that comes out of it, the disagreements, the the personality clashes, the ego clashes that come in the way, the insecurity in some, the overthinking that goes into it. Like, uh, it really came well here, and it really came out here, and I was really surprised. I mean, I was a little thrown back by all the slurs in the film, but it's a film from
So
1968, so
yeah,
it's yeah, it's
it's
what it
like the
is.
meme, right? It was a different time, they say.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
literally a
No,
different
but
time.
they also censored one. That's what really had
No,
me laughing.
they censor someone's name. It's not a word.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
He says this guy is one of these people, just like, and then mentions the name. So they're trying to protect someone's identity. It's not a case of,
Yeah,
yeah, policing themselves.
okay. But yeah. I think yeah, I really love the way, and man, putting this together must have been quite a task, like in the edit room, because it really, like, whatever. From what I understood, it was shot the entire shoot. It covered like an 8-day shoot, right, of the same dialogue sequence with over and over again, with different actors. Sure, we followed one set of actors throughout the film. I mean, for the first 2/3 of the film, and then then they figured out, this is not working. It's too fake, and we'll have to make it more real, and that's uh, whatever. The crew intervened and got their wish through there.
The opening scene
Uh,
is also a different bunch of actors.
yeah, and yeah, the open, and yeah, like it was very interesting. I would like to discuss more. I would like to hear the others' thoughts. I think they, like, them having had time to think and really reflect on the film would have would bring out a lot more. So I'm excited to talk about, to listen in on this one.
Okay. I don't know. I think you've already seen this film before we featured it, right? So how was it
Yeah,
revisiting the film after how many years?
yeah. Yeah, I had seen it probably when 2016, 17, maybe 4 years back around that time. I rewatched it this Tuesday. It still holds up pretty well. It seems a bit dated now, but it still holds up quite well. But that first wondrous feeling of watching it for the first time, of course, wasn't there. But it holds up really, really well. So it's a one of a kind film, right? There are very few films which you can compare with this, or which kind of falls into the same bucket. Also, there have been almost none, right? Uh, a film which is maybe probably near to this much of formal, this much formally inventive would be Orson Welles's, If a Fake, from that time period. Apart from that, I can't think of any other film which is as inventive as this formally. and it was so criminally underseen, right, under, I mean, up to 91, when it was, sort of discovered by Steve Buscemi, and then it found distribution. So for almost about 25 years, it was just sitting in the director's closet, Will Gibbs' closet. Nobody had seen it. So yeah, I mean, did the others who have seen it for the first time go first? Then probably I'll add more thoughts on it.
There are some really good docu-fiction type films. Recently, I saw a film about a book collector.
Hmm.
So part one is a documentary, part two is fiction, and part two, the fiction is like so blended into his real routine. You don't know what part was scripted and what was not. So I'll send you a link to that film later.
Hmm.
But
Okay.
but yeah, there are some really good projects like this. Mm, Mohammed, do you want to go next, and then Kritik, and I'll go after that.
Yeah, as already Jeffrey and Arun have mentioned that this movie took me to different level of how movies are made, editing part especially. I was really it was more technical for me, for because I am an outsider, but the concept, even such movies can be made with such a inventive approach. That was beautiful. Still, I'm struggling to understand how it was connecting. What was the intention of going ahead with this uh, project? That exploring the director. What if yeah, that part? Director's mind, how he thinks. Uh, why a director makes a movie, that all those exploring the mind of a director was that part I really loved, because why director wants to make a movie. And I think there is one sentence they mentioned that director wants to live through these actors that life. So that was a beautiful thing. Then yeah, arguments, how movies are made, what all goes into. Earlier I had this thought that okay, a director decides, all others like sound recorder, photographer, and they just quietly go ahead whatever director say. But actually it doesn't happen. Even those people challenge at every step that what director is doing, is it right? Does he have uh, foresight to see what it will have impact, why he's doing. There's lot challenges in a director's path, or questions he has to keep on answering, so that they are convinced and they will assist him rather than oppose him. So that part I really loved. And again, it was very inventive. uh, yeah, and while searching, I was going through this internet that what is about this movie. Even the title was so big. I think even I can't pronounce this spelling, Symbiopsychotaxiplasm. Yeah, it was really difficult. But then again, if it was shared by in the group, then I thought, yeah, there might be something more to this movie, just comparing a certain aspect of movie making, more than that, exploring actors, directors, which scenes should be taken, slate, magazine, more technical terms. I was little bit overwhelmed, I couldn't connect with. But apart from that, how movies are made, filming it, uh, taking continuous shots, repeated shots, and how it will affect the actors who are doing them. And yeah, all of them were very beautiful. And yeah, as we go on, I'll share more of the uh, part of the movie which I really loved, and other parts I'll be asking you for help because I couldn't understand why they were put, or what was the intention behind those scenes being integrated in the final documentary.
Okay, Kritik, and then I'll go next after that.
Yeah, it was
It was really interesting, and surprisingly, it was actually really entertaining to also watch. I mean, which I definitely didn't expect from a feature-length experimental film, and it was a pleasant surprise to actually have fun watching this. And this the director also, I think William Greaves was also like pretty charismatic and funny, and there were um, other characters also who kept on coming and going, who who added a different kind of uh, 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 who took the who kind of digressed and took the film on different paths. Even the homeless guy at the end. So I don't know what was going on there, but and when the crew brought up that he was acting also, so that's also quite interesting that the director was behaving differently. And I'm not sure, like myself, like I don't know if I couldn't find any all-encompassing idea behind it. But what especially stuck in my mind was a quip by one of the crew, where, like, when the others were discussing the director's actions and motives, I think the cameraman finally said, "So you believe in God," and that really got me, and that really stuck in my head too.
Yeah, it's quite a strange little film. It's hard to expect where this will go. And the first time I saw it, I was quite surprised at how calm the director is. He's quite relaxed at all times. And I've seen in my life that even the most relaxed filmmaker that you know will lose it on set at some point. So, and here there's a constant push and pull of the power dynamic going on, uh, and he's uh, quite casual about it. He's not he's not how do I say this? He's not irritated by that at all. And the second time I saw it, this time I was like Arunav said, I was slightly worried that maybe I've already read everything the film has to offer, and it will be just recapping what I already know. But no, this time I actually got a little more out of the film, so um, I'm quite pleased that I got to see it again. And yeah, the idea behind this club is, I used to try to feature one challenging film a month, and from here on, we'll just try to find more and more films like this. So I'm quite happy to hear that all of you enjoyed the film. So with that, I think we can at least start talking about the film. So when the film opens, right, with the with the dialogue piece with the two characters, it's the same bit of dialogue given to a few different actors, and it's fascinating to see how differently the scene plays just by changing out the actors who read the lines, what kind of emotion they bring to it. Do they bring anger to it? Do they bring hesitation to it? So that got me thinking, why would this be there? Some of the couples, if I can say, some of the actor pairings, some of the actors are understanding and quite kind towards their partner. Some of the actors are quite dismissive, and some act a little aggressively, and so it got me thinking that this is a microcosm of a relationship and not just two characters. We're not looking at John or uh, John and Jane, for example. It's not two characters, but it's two archetypes of male female relationship. Let it play. And one of the crew members really gets this, and he said that at some point in our lives, all of us have played a scene like this in our lives, that we are upset with our partner and we don't see eye to eye, but we have to resolve it. And how do we do that? What are the tools of communication we use? And so, yeah, maybe we can start with that, and I'll bring up more points as we go along. So, what did you guys think about the piece that was chosen for these actors to perform? It's only one scene, and they keep doing it different ways with different actors, different locations. Is there anything special that stands out from this part?
Can I go first, guys? Or...
Go anytime. Yeah, it's all unmoderated.
Okay, so but here's how I saw it. Like, I saw it as this. I think a character literally explained it. One of the crew members explained it at the middle of the film, right? I mean, I drew it from there, straightforward. That interpretation straightforward. That it being well, when we when it's a rather standard conversation that happens between two partners after some point, right, after the honeymoon stage or once it wears off. And but it's not just about that. It's like when you see these two actors, the two actors that we follow throughout, the blonde lady and the bald guy, when they themselves off screen, they have like this kind of like a back and forth going on. Like, they don't quite get along with each other, but they also do, like, in some ways. And that also feeds into the role they play when the cameras are rolling, right? So I think the scene itself was written to bring that out, right? And even with the other partners, other actors, I think with the musical one, with the duet ones, Greaves mentions this to them, like, to tone it down, don't get too close to each other, and like that, because he was getting the opposite effect on screen, that they were working a bit too well with each other, and that was showing on screen, and that and to me that represented this it was like an sort of like a it was metaphorical of the creative process itself. Like, when you're collaborating with people to make something, like there is this back and forth that's going on, right? You guys, we would nag each other's ideas, we would call out things in each other's ideas, we would praise, we would find good stuff, and there would be this, like, almost it's like an intimate relationship on its own, right? And where we are free to contribute, add and subtract to and from each other's idea, what each other has to say about building this together. So yeah, I think because in a way, this kind of relationship is also going on between the director and the rest of his crew throughout the film, right? Structurally, that's also happening in the background, in the subtext of it. So in the thing in the background, that's like another layer, right? So that's how I saw it. So yeah, like collaboration, or like filmmaking as a man woman thing, I guess.
When that musical part came in, right, I was wondering how much of the influence was borrowed from Umbrellas of Cherbourg, because that might have come out maybe 2-3 years before this film, and assuming that was a big success, the way they sing is very identical to that film. So I was wondering if how much of that influence was pulled in from that film.
Yeah. I mean, so here's another thing that stuck out to me. Like, I saw Steven Soderbergh's name at the end of the film, under the restoration tag, and like, it kind of struck me, like, because Soderbergh is also a guy who plays with form. Although he doesn't never. I mean, he. I mean, I don't think he has gone this meta in his films. Like he's no Charlie Kaufman type or anything, but he does play around with how he does play around or bring some meta-ness to how he stages his shots. Like
Steven Soderbergh is very provocative. So
yeah,
when the whole film versus digital debate was going on around 2009 to 2011, he went and shot a movie on iPhone, and like
yeah,
basically a giant FU to the whole industry, saying that in the end, you make a film, the format barely matters. As
true.
long as you can play it and people can watch it, who cares what you shoot it on?
Yeah, I mean, like even with some of his more conventional films, right? Like take the Oceans franchise for an example. I think that's his most well-known IP, right? So even in those films, he does play around with the form of it. Like the characters get meta. I think Brad Pitt and George Clooney comment on their stardom in that film, right? In the first film, they play with the whole idea of a heist, like how it's almost ludicrous, but it's also like wish fulfillment. Or even with the shots, the way the story is told visually, with the transitions and I think even the split screens in the second and third films. So that like it really clicked for me. The playfulness is very much evident in his films, and that's also what like tantalized me here. Like I especially loved it when they were simultaneously showing us what each camera was recording, one take from each camera, and how it looks like from. I mean, uh, how it changes the way we see it coming out, like just playing on. Uh, so yeah, I really loved that. Like it was like the kind of thing that got you really hooked on watching this, right? Because you kept wondering, and we never really got that payoff either. We never saw the perfect take. It just got interrupted by this, hippie dude who just came out of nowhere and started telling his own story and hitting on the crew. So yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if Soderbergh was pulling inspiration from this film.
yeah. Yeah, I could definitely see the seeds for it. Like even on this watch alone, like I was immediately thinking like, wow, okay, the like and it clicked and it obvious it was like as soon as I saw his name on the credits, I was like, okay, fine, obviously, like it couldn't be anyone else, right? So yeah.
Okay.
Um.
Any of you have points to add before we move on?
So just to add to that, the scene in question, right, the central scene which is being repeated throughout the film, I think that there's a certain intentionally stagey quality about it. It's supposed to, or it's intended to evoke a certain kind of reaction from the crew, which it does, right? The I don't know what's his name, the guy, the sound recordist guy. He says that he specifically uses the word sordid, right? It's a sordid conversation that we're hearing for the last 8 days. We keep on hearing this, and it almost seems like a hammy knockoff of something out of Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, right? Or some kind of marital comedy or marital drama, right? So the central question is whether all of this is actually pure reality, or is this something fictionalized? What exactly was the involvement of Bill Greaves in all of this? Did he let things flow, or did he actually have some active part in things that we are seeing? Right? That's the central thesis of the film. That there are so many questions around here, right? So at its core, what is it? It's first of all an interrogation of the entire filmmaking process itself, and secondly, it's an interrogation of the categories of or the genres of fiction and documentary, right? and also it can be seen as a thesis on power itself, right? The interplay between a leader versus collective, a group, right? Or auteur versus collective or commune. That is one of the themes as well, right? So the first question, when we first see Bill on camera, right, after the first scene, the two actors who are screen tasting, and then we suddenly see Bill go behind the scenes and start seeing the filmmaking process itself. And the first question, which when I first saw it, the first question which came to my mind around 5 minutes after that was, who is this? Like, is this the real Bill Greaves, or is he playing something? Some part of it is it partly fictionalized, or is it fully fictionalized, right? And whether he is actually playing that role to provoke the crew, to elicit some sort of a reaction, right? So that was the first question. So ultimately, what is it? It's a circular meta documentary, right? It's first of all, at one level, it's a documentary about a documentary, and then it's also a documentary which is documenting a documentary about a documentary, right? So that's the most important part of the film. So is it a documentary of a fictionalized idea, or is it a fictionalized documentary, or is it pure reality? What is it? And I still don't have an answer. You have to say it twice.
Can I say something?
Yes.
I'm gonna think. I think the film is just an excuse.
Mm-hmm.
When I say film, which is the film they're shooting. So you mentioned that the director has this stagey quality. Like he's also doing a performance of sorts, right?
Yep.
So
and the crew catches on to that, right? It says
they
that
do.
whenever the camera turns on, he kind of plays a persona. They almost suspect that this is some kind of a vanity project.
Yeah. So the great filmmakers of the past, for example, from that behind that era, I'm trying to think of some big names. Cecil DeMille and Hitchcock, and they all had a larger than life persona, and they all spoke in with a lot of confidence and with a lot of throw to their voice. So maybe he's try to bring some of that into the film, that I'm going to play the part of a director, and this is what the director is like. And
considering F of Fake Orson Welles would also be a good comparison.
Yes, absolutely. There is this whole, almost a classical comic cinema vibe going on, right? Is almost evoking some sort of Chaplin, some Linder, some Jack Tarty, some Orson Welles, some Jerry Lewis even. So this vibe is all.
Jafar Panahi's This Is Not a Film.
Yes.
Taxi, that's also there. That's also in the same zone. And yeah, so the film they're actually shooting, or at least the screen test which they're actually shooting, is all an excuse, because when the film opens, you can see him talk to the B camera guy and say that no matter what happens, you don't stop rolling. What you document is as important as the film itself. So, which tells me that he's just setting up things in front of the camera and then letting chaos take over.
Yep. Those screen takes or whatever they're doing with those actors, those are just excuses, basically.
Yeah. And speaking of power dynamics, this time I noticed he's letting people walk over him on purpose. He's, whenever someone challenges his role as a filmmaker. In fact, there's one of the cameramen who tells the director to bring the magazine. Who does that, right? Then the same camera guy comes in and says, hey, you're not going to get a good exposure here because this is the lens, this is what the lens is capable of, and this is what we're shooting at. So anyway, basically trying to challenge the director's position in front of the crew, and he completely lets that happen. And it's not that he's not capable of taking charge of the scene and getting things done in an efficient manner the way he wants to, because at a later scene we do see him bring the actor back to line, right? There's one older actor who's constantly making jokes, and he kind of shuts him up a bit and says,
He
"I'm trying to
says,
make a film." Yeah,
what
he's
kind of
definitely-
faggot do I play?
Yeah.
During that part, yeah.
Yeah, he shuts him up and says that I'm trying to make a movie here. Are you going to cooperate? And we're taking this very seriously. It's not a joke. So he is very capable of doing that, but he chooses not to do that.
Yeah.
Now,
In the early parts, I think it's intentional, right? He's playing this part of a incompetent director, trying to provoke the crew, so that those interludes happen, right? And now my thesis is that interlude, which is the most interesting part of the film, where the crew is actually sort of rebelling against him.
But I know which direction you're going, and that will answer a lot of things. Before we do that, can I bring up a segue, and then you can sum it up in the end?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So, in the nature of this incompetence which is happening, it begs you the question: who really makes the film? And I'm really curious to hear about the answers from the other participants, because I don't think nobody here has filmmaking experience, right?
I've tried and failed in the past. I mean, I've made a couple of short films when I was
okay. Jeff has some filmmaking experience. Okay, so I'm curious to hear from everyone else. Who makes the film? So the composition is set by the cameraman. Performance is done by the actors. Sound people are doing sound. What's the role of a director? What's he even there for? Because in the group meeting, it's very obvious, right? Everybody knows the job. Everybody knows how to do their job. But there's still this person called the director, who everyone has to follow. So, what do you guys think? What's the role of a director, or how important are the departments of a film? Sorry, departments of a film production: camera, sound, this and that.
If I may,
Sure.
recently I was given the in charge of conducting drama in B.Ed. They said me, okay, you write a script, already a book, so I adapted. I was writing. Then I thought, okay, let them do. I gave all the roles. Okay, now do whatever you want. They did it. Though they got the essence of those sentences, that okay, here you have to be more emotional. Here you have to be more confident while delivering this dialogue. What I observed is, though they were doing what was required to do, it was not synchronizing or not getting integrated in the whole story. What I had or in my mind, that okay, this ultimately this is the climax, it's going to meet at that point. I felt that there was chaos, as in this film. What I see, by being incompetent, the director, he's showing that how chaotic it can get, how every person's opinion, if you go on taking, a cameraman, this person, if you go on taking their whole opinion, it's not going to lead to a particular conclusion. There will be always arguments for whatever action we take. No matter how perfect you are, how meticulously you choose that scene, there will be argument that something can be better. If we go on listening to those feedbacks, we are never going to make a film. So I think that's the part where a director comes. He says, yeah, this is the place I want to take. This is the place I will start the scene, start the shoot, and this is the place I will stop the shoot. So I think it's all the director's main role is where to start and where to stop. Yeah, I just thought of sharing this. That's all.
No, that's actually quite well put. That without a singular voice, there would be chaos. Jeff, Aruna, anything on this front?
So I agree with what Mohammed said, but I also have this to add. Like, I think that tension is necessary between all the crew members. Because without that, you'll never get like. I'll back up my argument in like a few minutes, but here's my hypothesis. Right, here's my argument here. I think that tension or that level of discourse, not tension, discourse even, is required. Sure, it can be a lot to deal with in the high of it, and sure, some of it may be rubbish. But at the end of the day, you have to have that in order to make better art, right? Better. Like, we never find out what the final result is, but it really doesn't matter. I mean, because we are watching it, but I mean, that said, but I'm talking about the uh, I think someone echoed. I think one of the women crew members echoed this sentiment in one of the crew member scenes, that it's his film after all, right? It's not like, no matter what we can make out of it in the moment, it's all like in 6 months from now, once the edit is done, it's his film, and we're gonna see it for what it is. Only then can we make sense of it. Like, I was reading this book, Easy Riders Raging Bulls, a while back, and that covers the new Hollywood period. That is all the heydays of the 70s to 80s. Spielberg, Scorsese, all of them coming out and making their debuts, right, and making the initial hits. Now, I think it was around. I think there was a story about Jaws, in the production of Jaws, where Spielberg was only 26 at the time when he got the contract, when he got the opportunity to sign up to do Jaws. And the production was such a huge nightmare because everyone was undermining him because of his age and lack of experience. And at the same time, he also did make a lot of mistakes because he couldn't shoot. Like, the shark was a huge part of the storyboards in during pre-production. He wanted to, like, there were supposed to be a lot of scenes that actually showed the shark moving and all that, but on set, all the shark animatronics and models broke down, or they were malfunctioning. And this, again, the production, I think, went from 3 months to over 5, 8, I don't know, it went beyond 100 days. And people were losing faith in him, and he himself was losing faith in himself. And it wasn't until one of his producers told them, like, that you have to, like, he was about to, like, I think he was also dealing with anxiety at the time, like, he was on pills and whatnot, and he was about to call it quits when one of his producers told him to, just shut up and get done with it, because you're already in this mess, and we'll figure it all out in the edit. Now, if that producer wasn't there, the film would have never been the hit that it was today. And you can't really, like, looking back, and if you watch Jaws today, you may attribute it to him, but it's only in retro. It's a retroactive act, right, to attribute that to the director, the credit, because in many ways the director is just a catalyst to get all these other talents working for him or her. So I think that's the job. That's the thing here, right? The job of the director is to reduce the uncertainty in the cast and crew, in making a film together. Because a film, when you break it down by parts, and when you're in like, any creative thing for that matter, right? Any outcome of a creative process, the process of it is frustrating when you're trying to uh, you know put it together. That process is frustrating, right? Even be it a writer, even be it a art designer, even be it a illustrator, uh, and when it's working on a scale like we have in filmmaking, where there are multiple people involved, let alone yourself, that it's even harder. So I think it's about that uncertainty and bridging that uncertainty, finding something to get everyone on board with, right? Finding that little scotch tape or band-aid to, temporarily fix all these problems. That's what the job of a director is about. Now, whether you can call him the author or not, I think it's more up to, like, yeah, I think that's fair. Like, I mean, we may say, I mean, think of it like this: like, we we may be created by God or by our parents or whoever we choose to believe in. But uh, tomorrow, tomorrow if I want to work on my body, or if I want to like work out, or if I fracture my hand or something, I go get it fixed on my own accord. So, and if I do something wrong, the blame will be on me, right? So I think I see the director in that manner too. Like, it's not really just his efforts, but it's him uh, spearheading that ship or whatever it is, right? Spearheading that effort to bring it to get this done. And yeah, like, uh, yeah. So in the context of this documentary, maybe they played it up, maybe they didn't. But I mean, maybe Bill isn't. I mean, maybe he's a lot more calmer in real life. Maybe he's not so calm or incompetent in real life. But it it doesn't matter really, right? In the context of the film, this is what he's trying to say about the process. Uh, so I think it's just that, like, it's about dealing with the uncertainty of making a good film. Because making a good film is like every director's biggest concern, right? So yeah, there's also like, now that I'm talking about this, there's another anecdote that I want to bring into this. But I'll bring that up later.
Let me phrase this question slightly differently. What did Bill Greaves do wrong in this production?
He set the ball rolling. I I watched from afar.
Yeah, why was the crew so agitated with him? What was he not doing that a director is supposed to do?
Well, they did constantly complain about him giving unclear and very vague directions, and even his I don't remember the correct word for it, treatment or initial idea of it was also, even those who read it couldn't understand it. So yeah, and they did call him incompetent multiple amount of times, but yeah, so that was clear why the crew was frustrated. But I'm not sure how your question was saying, like, what you mean to ask by a question. Like, what do you mean that what did the director do wrong? Because, like,
Yeah,
as
the
a
crew
whole,
was frustrated with him, right? So, this, in what capacity was he incompetent as a filmmaker? That the
well,
crew.
I'm little because I'm a little bit confused because in one way you can think it was like intentionally he was being that kind of director, or
Okay.
you're just trying to mention like. What did he do to frustrate the crew
Yeah,
members?
even if he was being intentionally incompetent, what was he? What was expected of him that was not being fulfilled on set?
I guess all I can just say is like he didn't give a proper direction.
So what is expected of him is it's a director is expected to take control of the entire thing, right? In a Hollywood studio system, which is the overarching filmmaking system in the world, or was at that point even more powerful. So, which is what he's not doing here, right? And hence the frustration, and also the fact that they don't know where all this is going, right? They keep filming the same scene again and again as part of screen tests, and they don't know how it integrates as a whole, what exactly the director is planning to do with it. They don't know the larger whole. That's where the source of irritation or whatever is coming from. And
I
all
think
that I feel is intentional. Yeah.
Yeah, similar thing. He keeps on saying that we will improvise. This word, no, improvise. If you don't provide a clear, what's the direction, improvisation will lead you to multiple direction, divergence. He's just there's no converging ideas, diverging. So he's more of a diverging. He just keeps on using this improvise, will we improvise as we go on. I think that's very wrong thing as a director. If he keeps on saying people just keep on improvising at that situation, uh, yeah, I forgot that particular sentence. Situation, in that situation will improvise and the situation will get improvised, something like that.
So just a question, right? In the same lines, that what do you think? I mean, if there were no improvisations in this particular case, would this film exist? Just a hypothetical question.
Hell no. uh, so I think it's this, right? There's this exchange of dialogue, right, in one of the crew member scenes where they're in the office, like talking and vibing and all, and there's that thing, right, where one of the ladies accused Bob, right, Bob Rosen, the was he the sound guy or the DOP? I can't tell. He's like doing multiple things on the camera, but whatever. He accuses she accuses him of trying to take the film away from Will Greaves, and he disagrees. He says like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm just voicing out my opinion. But uh, like and and like and then she asks him, right, and then I think someone else asks him like, but what do you think about the scene? Why do why do you feel that? Why do you feel this certain way? Why do you still want to believe in his vision? And she literally say, I think he literally says that this was all planned, like consciously or unconsciously by the director. Maybe they are also aware of they're also somewhat aware of the fact that this is they are probably being played upon. And the very next dialogue brings us out even further. Like then one of the other guys teases him for like saying that, oh, so you do believe in God. and and I think that sums up my interpretation of the film. Like there is like if you look at it from the point of view of a crew member, right? Think about it. Like you're putting in 12-hour weekdays for like what 1, 2, 3 months straight for this one guy and the story he wants to tell, and you don't even know if it's going to come out okay or not. And if you like if you give a shit about the outcome, it's even worse because you're constantly like you're kind of battling your inner the conscious telling you that this is not how it should be done, right? I think if you watch the making of video for any, like I think this reminds me a lot of Hearts of Darkness, the documentary about Apocalypse Now. I think this is the second time I'm bringing this up on the discussion, but it reminded me a lot about that because that was, I can describe that film being like another. I mean, sure, it doesn't have any of the meta qualities, or it isn't trying to make a statement. It's just merely documenting a production, but the same tensions are there, right? Crew members and cast members bickering with each other, clashing with each other uh, over major creative decisions, uh, almost operating uh, with no contempt or basic respect. I mean, that film goes even a lot worse. Uh, but they're all in it for the same thing. They all have the same motivation, which is to make a good film. And how much of it comes into way, like how much of it can be a detriment to the overall process, it varies, right? How much of it can be a good thing or a bad thing, it varies, and it's a constant gamble or a calculation or some it's either a calculation or a stroke of luck on the part of the director to get them all in place at the end of the schedule, right? uh yeah uh I would like to hear more from Vivek because I think he would have more to say about this side of things.
Oh, before that, I have one more thing to add. So, just for experiment, what to say, thought experiment. Vivek is a director, and I am a crew member. And I challenge him, or I go with against that. Okay, this scene, I feel that it's not going well. What should we do? Here, I think Vivek, being a director, either he has to tell me or convince me that whatever you are trying to see or you are expecting from that scene doesn't what to say doesn't synchronize with the whole movie. He should be competent enough to convince me, not dominate if he has given me freedom to question him, definitely he should provide me necessary explanation so that I am convinced, rather than making me just shut up. Here in the movie, I think he's neither telling them to shut up, nor is providing any what's a valid explanation what to say, convincing argument is not providing. So I think there he is failing as a director.
Mohammed, I want to ask you a question that in relation to what you said earlier, right? In the beginning of the call, you said that if you take everybody's opinion of everything, you will never go anywhere. So why is it the director's job to convince the crew members about what his intention is?
Because he has given the democratic what to say, he has allowed them to question him. He's so jolly, so friendly that okay, if you have something, just talk it out. I don't think all of the directors in the world will do that, I think Satyajit Ray, I heard that he was very short-tempered on the set scene where while shooting. He was very short-tempered, and everybody quietly followed what he said. And if the actor or the one of the crew member missed something, he would just shout. That is what I heard. I don't know. I just was reading article. So either he should say that this is my movie, just shut up and do what I am saying, or he should be giving freedom for them to ask, and he should be competent enough to provide clear explanation that yeah, this is the scene, this is why I have added this scene, these dialogues. So just try to understand this.
But if every department comes and asks questions about every decision, then you spend more time answering than you shooting the film, right? Then, like you said, it will go nowhere. So,
sure, yes.
And we've all seen many strange films, right, together. Let's say La Quattro Volte, which we saw a few weeks ago, or something like that. How does a filmmaker even explain what the final film will be? Because a lot of the ideas are all implied. It's not said it out in dialogue. So if he explains the film, then he's basically ended the mystery behind the film. Then there'll be no conversation because director has given you an official explanation of what the film is about. So
but I think he's making a movie for the audience, not for the crew member.
And interestingly, in that room scene in this film, one guy says that maybe the point is not the direction, but the lack of direction, which is causing us to get in this room and talk to each other like this. That is more interesting than whatever, couple scene he's shooting in the park. So, okay. So to counter what you guys have, it seems the consensus is that the director should be very clear about what he wants and be able to justify his decisions. And that is not a wrong answer, but I'm going to, for the sake of the discussion, I'm going to counter it. Terrence Malick, very famous filmmaker and arguably one of the greatest in Hollywood, does not work with the screenplay. Joanna Hogg, whose film we've seen a few months ago, she also works with ideas and setups and characters, and she does not work with a word to word screenplay. And in fact, Terrence Malick is slightly infamous. Maybe you've heard the stories about him shooting a film, and he spends a lot of time shooting with one character, and when that actor, when he went to the premiere of the film, he's not in the film at all. So some actor who thought he's the lead actor of this film, in the edit he got cut down and he's not even in the movie. So that is Terrence Malick. If you've seen Tree of Life, Thin Red Line, or Days of Heaven, his style of working is very loose, very natural, and very free flowing. And have you guys, all of you, I'm sure you've heard of Oliver Stone.
Very expensive too.
What?
Very
Terrence
expensive
Malick.
too.
Yeah.
His films, like, they tend to go on for months on end.
Yeah, Terrence Malick had a reputation of making one film every 10 years or something like that.
Yeah.
Maybe more. Then you've all heard of Oliver Stone, right? Very famous Hollywood filmmaker.
Yeah.
So I was reading an interview by his DOP, and apparently the guy is clueless about everything. And this is all hearsay. You don't have to take my word for it, because I'm not sure about it myself. But he really doesn't know what is what. If you ask him, like, should I shoot this with like the underexposed footage or conversation they were having under the tree, if you put that conversation in front of Oliver Stone, he's like, you're the camera guy, not me, I don't care, just shoot my film. And all he does is spend time with the actors and get the performance right. And yeah, and Oliver Stone has won how many awards? Plenty, right? So, and there's my point, that Bill Greaves is not doing anything wrong. He's doing exactly what he needs to be doing, which is focusing on the performance and giving everybody a task to do and then letting them do it. Now, it's the technical people who cannot digest this, because for some reason they're under this belief that this is not a real film. This guy is just playing. He's just having fun. So they're deriding the final film before it has even taken shape. So I'll give you an anecdote which happened to me many years ago when I was still a student. There's an AD I was working with on a small short film shoot, and he had opinions about everything, how the camera should be placed and how the sound should be done and what sort of composition and what sort of lighting. And he's an AD. His job is more mechanical than creative, yet he was getting into everybody's business. And we were having a conversation, and he was telling me, basically making fun of the director about how this guy doesn't know anything, and if he was given an option, he would have made such a better film. And my answer to him was, then do it. You should. If you're so, and I mean this without being sarcastic, that if you're so confident in your abilities, put it to the test, make a film, and yeah, be a filmmaker of your own. But if you are on somebody's set as an assistant director or as a sound person, it is not our place to go and poke at the director to find out how to do this or what is the better way to do it, drop suggestions here and there. It's really not our place, because that would be called something, I forgot the phrase, but something like shooting from someone else's shoulder, right? So they're dropping all the suggestions, they're telling you all the possibilities, but when the film flops and there's a big loss, who's going to take responsibility of it? Not the sound guy, not the assistant director. It's the director and the producer who'll face most of the consequences. So I highly believe in respecting the position that they're in, because they understand all the risks, and after understanding those risks, they are making these decisions on set. Now, if you don't agree with such a decision and the director is giving you freedom, like in this case, Bill Greaves is giving people freedom to come in and drop suggestions, then you do it privately. You don't, call a crowd and create a scene. Then it is up to the director whether they want to use your suggestion or not. But I completely, I think if a filmmaker is making some choices on set, I always assume it's for a reason. Even if it ends up being horrible, no problem. But that was the director's conscious choice. They went with it. It failed. It didn't work. Next time they'll make better choices. But it's not my place to, try to interject. Correct. So sometimes, for example, I was talking about Le Quattro Volte and Unrelated and all that. Maybe it's an avant-garde vision that we don't currently understand. Or in the case of Symbiopsychotaxiplasm, that his vision was so beyond what anyone was thinking that even after 50 years, the film still feels very fresh and very natural, and the concepts are still worth talking about. So yeah, technical people, they know how to conduct the production. Sound guy knows sound, camera guy knows camera, acting people know acting. But do they have something to say in the format of a movie? And that is the question that most crew members will not be able to answer. And I can speak about this with confidence because I know a lot of people in the VFX industry who are very frustrated from the kind of work they're asked to work on. Explosions and buildings falling all the time and this and that. And yeah, my question to them is, fine, I understand the movies you're working on are not good movies, but what is stopping you from making your own movie? And this is a question I ask myself also, that me as a VFX artist, anything I can imagine, I can put on screen. So what is really stopping me? Nothing. So yeah, you can learn how to play your part in the production from a technical point of view or production standpoint, but to have something original to say that is going to last for a long time is not something everyone can do. And it was quite interesting that some of the crew members were more irritated than others, and some crew members were completely calm. For example, the two sound recordists, right? One lady and one guy. They're completely relaxed and chilled out and doing their job at all times. Whereas there's two guys with glasses in the film. Both of them are constantly annoyed and constantly, questioning things and rejecting the suggestions of that it might actually be something interesting. Both of them are like, no, there's no way. This is all bullshit. So yeah, this power dynamic is something interesting, that maybe it's the insecurity that is coming out on set.
Yeah.
It's not really about the roles of a filmmaking crew and the kind of movie you make together, but more about, I know more than this guy, or the fact that you're in a park shooting the same scene for 8 days it's so banal that I could make a better film than that. So that's why they're, the insecurity is kind of jumping out. That no way is this guy considered a filmmaker? I could do better than that. So maybe that. Aruna was going to bring up a very, very interesting point, so I'll pass it on to him.
Which point? I forgot.
About the power dynamics of the crew versus the director.
So I think we have already addressed that kind of, right? So what is happening here? It's also the flavor of the season kind of thing, right? It's late 60s politics in action, right? So at that point of time in film history, there was a debate going on between audio theory on one hand, being propounded by the French theorists, mostly, starting from Cahiers du Cinéma, the magazine, and then what was going on with the new left in America, right? Which was sort of espousing the principles or idealizing the principles of the collective, the commune, or the group, right, as the ideal way to go about it. Not sticking with audio theory where the director or the helmer is the sole driving force, or it's his vision that we are all chasing. They were not on board with that. So that particular dynamic is also at play here, right? So here he is espousing that sort of a collective organization, which is kind of an utopia, right? Where he has this, he's still the leader. He has a certain amount of charisma about him, right? But he's very non-authoritarian. He's not really dictating anything. He's offering a sort of a structure which offers certain basic rules, but it still makes room for all of the participants to kind of bend them. Right, self-questioning is in vogue. It's central to the process. It's quite spontaneous, flexible, and it's open to suggestions. Right, that's the kind of thing which is happening here. So that's another way of looking at it. But so I remember what the point I was trying to make was. So this particular thing, right, the interlude where the crew is actually rebelling against the director, or if not rebelling, at least criticizing. And the decision that they took to film themselves while doing it and then handing it over to Bill. So what do you guys think? Is this real? I mean, quote unquote real, or was some form of manipulation involved here? And can something be this serendipitous?
As I was watching those recordings, so I think it was genuinely real, because the dialogues they were saying, there was anger and spontaneous. If it had been scripted, I don't think it will be so smooth, flawlessly done. So
But that can be just good acting also, right?
Yeah,
Maybe those guys are really good actors.
Yeah, again, that's also a possibility. But I don't know why, but I felt they were really real in that recordings.
So my theory is that, I mean, it's again a theory, hot take maybe, that he probably had a quote unquote mole in the group, in the crew, who sort of nudged the crew towards this, not completely dictating the process, but sort of nudged them through this.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
That's what I would do if I were him.
Yeah.
So I'll agree with you.
So this one, so this Bill Greaves' son was actually assisting him while he was editing. He's also the editor of the film. He's pretty much in charge of everything in the film. So his greatest regret was that he did not film himself when he got the footage of this particular crew member shooting themselves, so that he could have included that into the film as well.
Okay.
Oh, is that a fact? Like his son was the co-contributor? Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
So I mean, the history around this film is fascinating, right? So it was made in 1968. 68 is a very important year in world history, right? A lot of things were going on. The civil rights movement was at its peak. the Vietnam War was at its peak. May
Yeah.
68 was going on in France. It's a heady time. So he completed it the next year at the end of 68 or around early 69. And when he finished cutting it and everything, he thought that he had a masterpiece in his hands. He genuinely thought that this was a masterpiece. And he wasn't happy with any small festival or any other museum to screen it at. So he thought that it should be screened at Cannes. And he sent it to Cannes. And what happened was the projectionist actually kind of screwed up and showed the reels out of order. And the programmers did not really like it. Even in order, it is quite difficult to follow. Imagine it at that time. It wasn't selected. So he became dejected and he had self-doubts that maybe this is nothing really. I mean, I have overestimated my creation. And he shelved it for 68 to 91. How many years? 23 years. He just shelved it. It was lying in his closet. It wasn't shown anywhere, nothing. Then in 91, so this guy was a very prolific filmmaker. Okay? He has made around 200 documentaries, and he used to work for TV. He started with acting, then he emigrated to Canada because of lack of opportunities, racism in Hollywood. Then he came back and joined the civil rights movement. He had a very colorful life. You should read about it. And there's actually a very good documentary which is included with the Criterion box set. I forgot the name, Finding Bill Greaves or something like that, which is very, very interesting to learn about his life. So what happened was in 91, by that time he was about 50 years old, 50 or something more than that. And he had a very wide over of work, right? And some guy from the Brooklyn Museum, they wanted to do a retrospective on him. So one curator was assigned to him. He went to his place and took all of his films and watched them and kind of figured out which ones to play when, which ones should be selected. And then he found this one. And he was really intrigued by the name of what is this symbio, blah, blah, blah. Why is it lying here? And he said, this is one of my first films. I don't know whether you should take it or not. He said, it's my job to watch everything and figure out which ones to feature in the retrospective. And he watched it and he liked it so much that he made this film the opening film of the retrospective. And that's how it came into public attention. Then ultimately, the next year in Sundance, Sundance Festival, it was shown, and Steve Buscemi was in the audience, and he kind of picked it up. Then eventually, Soderbergh also, loved the film when he watched it for the first time, and eventually Buscemi and Soderbergh actually ended up producing the sequel, Take 2.5. And, and supervising the entire process of getting acquired by Criterion, the double box set. So that's the backstory about the film.
Buscemi is in the second film also.
For
one or two scenes, he's there.
Yeah. And for this film, right, he had actually shot around 50 or 60 hours of footage, and he conceived it as a 5-part film. Right, the film ends with something like to be followed by Symbiopsychotaxiplasm Part 2 or something like that, Take 2, which never happened. Right, it ultimately happened in 2004 or 5, I think, when 2.5 happened. So he actually edited 55 hours of footage to arrive at this 1 hour 15 minutes, which is 75 minutes.
I always love when films are shorter than 90 minutes. I may have said that somewhere. Maybe in the main group.
That is Robert Bresson's principle, right? Film should not be more than 90 minutes.
Yes. I also love only 90 minutes or less than 90 minutes.
I don't mind watching 3, 4 hour 5 films, but my point is, so at least when I used to do curation for the other club, used to watch 60, 70, 80 films in a month, and it's surprising how many films are exactly 90 minutes long. And that makes you question that, do they say everything exactly with pinpoint precision, or do they end up putting some filler to reach this 90-minute mark? Or do they end up removing some important things that should have been there just so that it's a 90-minute film? So whenever I see a film which is less than 90 or slightly more than 90, it grabs my attention a little more.
How do you feel about Love Diaz?
I've seen Love Diaz in the cinema, right? I've told you.
Which one?
I forgot which one. They were playing one of his films at the Mumbai Film Festival.
Okay. The only one I have seen in the cinema was Norte, which is the shortest film for us.
Yeah. No, I saw some
I'm,
really long one.
I'm
I
already
remember
intimidated by Love Diaz.
I went in the morning,
haven't
10 a.m., and I came out like in later in the evening or night, something like that. So, but besides the point, you were going to make a point about the politics of the film, right? Which is when I stopped you. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've already covered it. The main thing was, it's so there are different ways of looking at it. Right? First one, like I said, interplay between audio theory versus collective. That is the main thing around here. I mean, what is happening here? And apart from that, like in the particular scene, quote unquote scene, or whatever screen test that they're filming here, there's a lot of dialogue which is explicitly homophobic, right? And very sexist dialogues also. So come to think of it, there are two very nice double entendres in the film, right? Which fascinates me. Even in the second time, I kind of picked it up. Even the first time, I had kind of chuckled at those points. The first one arrives when Bill Greaves is giving those directions for the first time, right? You film this, there are 3 cameras, all those directions are being given, and finally he says that the overarching theme of the film is around sexuality, and then he shows some random woman, riding in a horse. I forgot what he says. Something like, "Look, film that woman with the tits, they're bouncing," or something like that. And then some guy says that you sexist pig, or something like that. You dirty pig, or something like that. He says, "Don't take me seriously." That's a very nice phrase in that way. And another one comes when the two main quote unquote actors, right? They are enacting that scene, and the guy, what's his name, Bob, I think, Bob or John or something, I forgot. He says, "Oh, stop acting." That's another very nice double entendre. So these are two very nice points in the film. So I digressed. Where was I? What I was talking about was
the politics of the film.
Yeah. Shit, I forgot what I was talking about.
Okay, so I'll remind you. So Bill Greaves accidentally spills out his key intention behind this whole experiment. Is the whole exercise is very political in nature, in the sense you have a leader and you have a bunch of stakeholders.
Yep.
And at what point do the stakeholders start revolting against the man in charge?
Yeah.
Right. And so clearly the man in charge is not giving them what they expect. And either they have to just agree with the fact that, you know what, he's the leader of the collective and we have to follow his vision, or they stand up and say, no, this is enough, we're going to take control from here onwards. And he's trying to understand the human psychology that leads us to these moments. So obviously he can't become president and create chaos for a few years to see this, but he does this in the format of a film. That it's the closest thing to a dictator relationship you can have in a civilized country. That filmmaker ultimately, whatever he says goes. There's no argument about it. So what happens when the dictator himself is incompetent? So how long does the public tolerate before they push back? And to what extent do they push back? Or why do they push back? So yeah, that was the interesting thing political wise, which I did not see when I was younger, and which I was able to read this time around, watching it for the second time or third time, I don't remember.
Yeah. Makes
So
sense.
yeah, I remembered what I was talking about, right? So the dialogues in that particular scene, right? They like say faggot how many times? 1,000 times in the film. It's very explicitly homophobic, and so at that point in history, right, 1968 was when these the discourses, the political discourses around homosexuality or feminism were at its nascent stage, right? It was just beginning to be articulated, right? So at this point, seeing these kind of dialogues and what is going on here, what is being played here, what one really wonders whether uh, he has actually quote unquote written this supposedly spontaneous riff by this particular actor who is playing this guy, when he uh, says that I don't know whether to play a bisexual, a butch fag or a faggy fag, quote unquote.
Yeah.
So yeah, so
I love the fact that when he's having this conversation about Butch versus the other,
yeah,
and he also explains what a Butch fag is, right? That
yeah.
it's one person who's so overly masculine and so overly built up that you start to question that is he really insecure about his appearance so much that he has to be double masculine at all times. And then the camera, like, looks down to the right, some young guy, shirtless, oiled up, and
rowing a boat.
rowing his little boat.
I mean, things like that make me question whether these sections are staged. Like, because there's no way that's a coincidence. Like, it's just timed too well.
It's almost like a voiceover, right? Like you look at this guy and this explanation of Butch is happening in the background. It was hilarious.
I'm still laughing at that. Sorry. I mean, even with all the problematic aspects, right? I mean, it's all in retrospect. Even that, the film still has that. It doesn't come in the way of the experience, right? Like with me, usually, whenever I see something that's dated, like in a film, it doesn't. It takes me out, right? Here, like, sure, the first few instances took me out, but after a while, I just accepted it. Like, it's like, obviously these characters would act like this. And given that it was staged in a spontaneous, in a fly on the wall way, it was easier to, see it as what it is in contextually, right? So
it's very fascinating. I mean, how all of this seems so organically held together, right? The part again, I go back to that interludes where the crew is revolting. It's fascinating, right? A couple of times I've seen it. I almost can't believe that that's not staged. The people who are speaking, they're so articulate. They're articulating and their ideas so clearly. They're just the two main guys who are speaking, right? They're just brilliant speakers, right?
And they're cutting into each other, right? They're constantly interrupting each other with each other. So it's like they have to be like, it's hard. It blurs the lines there even more, right? So even if it was staged, it was brilliantly directed. If it was staged,
Yep.
So kudos to Greaves on that. And like there was I keep thinking there was like a movie in Bollywood like a year ago, I think with Anurag Kashyap and Anil Kapoor, which played on the same meta concept but in a different way, which was like it was lauded over as this huge, big innovation thing and all. I mean, it worked for the most part, but I think like after watching this, I can't believe I still can't believe something like this can be made today. Like with this level of precision. I mean, yeah, I'm sure it had to do with the fact that there was 50 hours of footage to draw from, draw some semblance of a structure from. But yeah, like it's still very impressive, like projects like these.
And also it shows how far a director can go to have a perfect shot.
Yeah, and it's almost ironic that the editor couldn't get any footage of himself in, right? Like, obviously, it kind of speaks to the role. It's also like a meta thing on the editor's role in filmmaking, right? The fact that he doesn't really have a say, or like he doesn't really have a
Yes,
presence.
especially in cases where the
His presence
filmmaker
is
himself or
invisible.
herself is the editor, right?
Yeah, yeah. His presence, in this case, the son's presence, like you mentioned, right? The son wishes that he had shot something to be placed,
Mm.
but it's even better that he's not there, because his imprint is still there in putting it together. It's invisible. So yeah, like it still works on that meta textual level.
So you're not
Before
supposed to see
going,
the hands of the puppeteer, right?
yeah. So yeah, it was fascinating. That anecdote really tickled my
So
bones.
you saw all the crew who were making the fake film, but you don't see the crew who are making the real film.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Then okay, I wanted to bring up the homeless guy who comes up later in the end,
Oh. Yeah.
and it seems so random that one guy walks in and interrupts the production and goes on a philosophical riff for some 10 minutes, and people stand around and listen to him. They actually pay attention and film him and listen to him. But what he says isn't completely in line with what the film is trying to talk about. And but he starts off, the first point he brings up was very interesting, that why do we need uh, this song and dance system of I guess he's criticizing society a little bit, that
Hmm.
why do we need this formal structure to everything? Why can't I just express myself very clearly, and why can't I just say what I really think and what I really feel? Why do I have to present myself in a certain acceptable way to the world? And his whole perspective on life is that he's rejecting all of it. He's rejecting society, and he doesn't want to be a part of it. And uh, at some point, I think one of the crew members is trying to make fun of him for sleeping in the park, right? That I've lived here and never seen anyone sleep in the park. I can't believe you sleep in the park, something like that. And he said, it's not just me. There's many people like me, many intelligent people who've given up on life because what's the point of anything? So it's a very cynical and very dark take on the world. Why are you born? What do you have for the world, and what does the world have for you? What's the point of anything and everything? It's a very
Yeah.
dark, cynical thing to take
And
home. But
he's an architect, right? He's an architect.
painter, he said,
Paint.
he made some watercolor paintings, and he was deployed in the war. So someone director asking how many wars were you in? Like, how many? One was enough.
Shit, I feel bad for laughing at that. But okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you see what war does, right? He's a
Yeah.
watercolor painter. He
Yeah.
talks about life and philosophy and the beauty of the world and all these things. You put him through war, and he gives up on life, he gives up on society, he gives up on
Yeah.
everything. No hopes, aspirations, nothing left. So this is tied to the whole political dynamic of the film, that in a way these guys fought the war for somebody else. So
Okay. What do you think that means with respect to the crew member? Like, can we draw a parallel there? Like, say if the director is a captain in this case, right? Or I mean, this could help you also with to articulate your experience of having worked on productions. I don't know, but uh, I mean, if we extend the war to the creative metaphor to this, like, is the French guy, is he French? I don't know. Is the guy in any way representing the views of the crew member in a in a higher context, in a higher
okay. So the
does that
film has two
decontextualize
conversations.
the Okay.
The film has two conversations going on. One is, the creative nature of filmmaking. The other is the human dynamics of roles of power, right? These are, and the second one is a little more political. So from a creative standpoint, you remember a few minutes ago I was talking about VFX artists being very fed up about the kind of films they work on.
Yeah.
That they spend so many years being experts in math and physics and all these things just to be able to make realistic looking things, and in the end, what are you making? You're making minions and building exploding buildings, and there's no end to it. Every end of the movie is the same. The world is about to end, and all the buildings fall down, and it's tiring. So I guess you could relate to that, to the creative front, as a burnout in a way. That if you don't do something creatively gratifying, then what are you doing with your art? And if you continue to, just play the role and cash your paycheck, one day, like you keep fighting those wars, you'll burn out and you'll give up. So that can also happen.
Right.
From the political standpoint, I guess it's his situation is quite clear.
Straightforward.
He's an artist, but now he's not sure what he is right now. Yeah, it's quite unfortunate. He says, I just look for money to buy some beer at the end of the night. That's all. Basically, just forcing himself to survive.
Yeah, get some respite from existing by through alcohol or whatnot.
It's a little sad, but
yeah.
But yeah, there's something I noticed second time around while watching the film. Didn't see it in the first time. So, anyways, are there any other points that we should be discussing, or are we good to wrap up?
Yeah, I guess so. I think I'm done. Like this,
Okay.
I'm sure there's something more good to this, but like if there's anything more, I'll post it in the chat.
Sure.
Like, maybe tomorrow I'll be able to offer more to. I mean, right now it's usually takes me a while to really form my thoughts around something. So yeah.
Okay.
Are we planning to keep this next week gonna be about the sequel, or what is it looking like?
No. So yeah, let me end this recording and then we'll talk.
Okay.
Mohammed, I can end, right?
Yeah, please.
Okay. I don't know who's going to watch this, by the way. We have no subscribers. So anyways, if you are watching, thank you for watching. See you next week.